Hello, I'm Aiden, and this will be my first book review. It's going to be super scuffed. Probably not gonna edit anything, so I don't know how. But yeah, I wanted to review In the House in the wow, that's bright. In the House in the Dark of the Woods by Laird Hunt. And I wanted to review this because it's fresh in my mind. I finished it 2 days ago, and it is simply one of my new favorite books ever. Probably one of my or the absolute favorite horror book or top three. But it was great, and I'm gonna talk about spoilers because that's most of the fun in this book. It is very difficult to understand at first. It's not very difficult, but you have to pay attention. Like I reread parts as I was reading it, but I still haven't reread the whole thing from beginning to end, and I feel like I understand it. So I read slowly, and I'm pretty stupid, and I feel like I got it all. So that's why I want to talk about it, because this book is crazy. It's fucking nuts, and it's so good, and it's kind of got controversial reviews. Not, I don't think controversial is the right word. It's just a lot of people don't like it, but I find that a lot of people don't like a lot of horror books that are, in my book, some of the best. Like, I think The Cipher and Annihilation and The Ruins all kind of have like a 3.5 on Goodreads, which is pretty dog shit, but I mean, that's just Goodreads. And this book is even lower. It's 3.3. So there are a lot of people that don't like it, but I find like, I mean, that makes sense, honestly. Having read this, I can see that it's difficult to follow, it's difficult to understand, to care. But if you take this book slow and you understand what's happening and you put different parts of it together by just getting what happened, or if you're like me, you have to go back and reread some parts, it is totally worth it. This book is its writing is beautiful. It is like, it's really whimsical, so that's why it's hard to understand, because nothing is really as it seems. Like, there's a lot of shit going on behind the scenes, and you kind of glimpse that, and the main character glimpses it, but you don't understand what's happening until towards the end. You kind of realize what's happening as Goody starts realizing what is happening, and it's excellent because it makes her decision just all that much more. It's just awful and amazing, and this is just a really good book, and it's really hard to talk about without spoilers. I'm using a bunch of words like beautiful and whimsical over and over. And so, yeah, I'm going to talk about spoilers now. So I will put this in the description too, because I think if you like horror and you like challenging books, or you even like fairy tales, then you should absolutely read this book. And you should not watch this part of the video, if anyone will even watch this, because I'm going to talk about spoilers. And I'm going to talk about what I think happened, and just basically what I think happened, and the themes of this book, and what all went down. So, okay, spoilers. So basically, the setting is colonial America. It's like early, I don't know when colonial America is, but it's when basically like there's a lot of fundamentalist religion. Basically, man is man of the household. Everyone, you just have to answer to God. Like, answer to your man, and your man answers to God, and that's that. There you go. That's human civilization for you in a nutshell. But so Goody she does not like her life. Her husband he gaslights her. He's emotionally and physically abusive. Her kid is kind of odd. She doesn't really connect with him, and he's very much his daddy's kid, and she's not having a good time as a colonial wife in this era, which is understandable because there's a lot of women not having a good time, and they're the ones who Goody is going to meet. And so one day she's going to pick berries, and she's having a decent time, and she sees this guy, basically the first folk, warning her out of the woods. And since this is a spoiler talk, I'm going to basically explain, like, not just this as it goes along, but what's actually happening, what you learn later. And so this first folk is part of Hope, and Hope and Red Boy are like basically the two godlike entities in the book. I think they're like ideas. They're impossible forces you can't go against, but you have to play by the rules, and so do they. So it's all part of the game, this whole like cosmic play they're putting on. So Hope and I think Hope is Red Boy and Red Boy is Hope, and vice versa. I saw one review online that like Red Boy is an embodiment of domestic abuse, but I don't think it's that simple. I think they're both like pretty well, not all encompassing, but like actually I don't really know what they represent, but they put on this own personal hell for people. And I to me, I guess the book is about being damned and essentially what you would take to escape from what you have. Like even it's like the lesser of two evils situation, but and it's like just how awful like how awful would you take a situation if it means getting away from your current one, which is also awful. So and that's what I mean by the whole game. So basically like Eliza and Goody and Captain Jane and Granny Someone, they're all playing out this play and they all get warned various times throughout the book like what's going to happen. Even Goody, she gets warned various times to turn around, even by Eliza who's trying to trap her. And like she's very conflicted because she wants to get out, but she also doesn't want this to happen to another girl. And then that happened to Eliza from Captain Jane, and then Captain Jane and Granny Someone, and it goes in a circle, and they all fill out this play like role for these two insane mad entities that. And so basically like Hope isn't really Hope, like because even Captain Jane explains like what Hope will do if you try to escape. And I'm pretty sure it's implied that the First Folk and the Wasp and like all of the warnings are also from Hope, but Hope is essentially like Hope still wants Goody in the game. Like her, both Hope and Red Boy do. They're part of the same thing. They're putting like I don't know really. This is kind of speculation, but so basically, I kind of went on a ramble there, but I'm trying to explain kind of what happens because I don't even know to myself. I'm figuring this out as I talk, but so Eliza is, but they're not all the same people. That's the thing I thought at first as I was reading, but by the end that makes it clear. Eliza and Goody and Captain Jane and Granny Someone and everyone else in the Woods is fucked up in Red Boy and Hope's fucked up game. Basically, they're all different people, but they're all filling out the same role essentially, and they're all becoming one another. And there's fuck, I saved it. There's a passage in here that Captain Jane says. I can't. It's like 1 is you, 2 is me, 3 is I don't remember, but it just goes back and forth. They play each other's roles, but they're different people, and they each came from a basically abusive homes. Like Eliza, when she escapes, she goes back to her man and her 2 twins, and she makes the man basically submissive to her and makes the town afraid of her. And the kids grow to respect her more over her man, and she basically becomes what her man was to her. And I think that's the biggest theme of the book. It's just everything going around this cycle of abuse, like you becoming what you hate. Because even Goody's mom was abusive to her dad, and then Goody's husband was abusive to her, and then if Goody eventually becomes Eliza, then Eliza escapes and she becomes abusive to her husband. And it's all this fucked up cycle. So I guess that reviewer that I said I don't agree with was right. They represent domestic abuse, which yeah, I guess that makes perfect sense because they all become what they despise. They eventually take this hell like existence with Red Boy over the domestic abuse at home, but then they eventually all go just insane and want to escape. And once they escape, then they go to abusing their husbands because that's the only way to live in that lifestyle, I guess. Which that's got a lot to say about that setting, but I mean that makes sense. Anything I've learned from, I guess, evolutionary history has showed me how fucked up human society is. And when I looked up the author's other books, it looks like he writes a lot of historical fiction. So history is probably his thing, and that makes sense because this is a fairy tale setting. I think his other books are like World War settings. So he wrote an incredible like cosmic horror and like not really cosmic horror, but he wrote this incredible just insane scale tale disguised as a fairy tale. And it is a fairy tale. It's not insane scale, but it's got layers to it, I guess. Like it's honestly it's an incredible book. Like, and that's essentially what I think happens. I think I explained my thoughts, and I think I covered everything. I should check my notes, see if there's anything else I didn't go over. But these are scuffed notes, just like the scuffed video, because I was taking them as I was reading it, and I was going back through and taking more notes from earlier pages, and everything's jumbled up because it was really confusing. So wow, okay, so this book was fucking creepy if you're invested in it, which I love. Like, there's a scene where Granny someone, like, she's just like this husk, this, I don't even know exactly. I didn't go over a bunch of storylines, like the screams and what Granny someone is, and like the boat made out of skin. Like, there's so much shit in this book I missed. Everything I just talked about is just a small part of it. Is what I was mostly interested in, like the backdrop that everyone's in, and the themes and like the setting. But there's other weird stuff in it too, like the singer that lures Goody down and that makes people into pigs, and just Red Boy, like why he was this fucking creepy ass big hulking Robin with human arms draped around Eliza. Like, that shit was, when that scene happened, the first thing I thought of was just that gif. I don't know if you've seen birds with arms, and it's silly. So the fact that the first thing that came into my head was something silly, but then I was able to kind of put that aside and imagine the scene and be thoroughly scared by it, just goes to show how creepy this book is if you're invested, because these people are essentially in their worst nightmare, and they will take their worst nightmare because of what is back home, because at least it's a new nightmare. They were just living a nightmare where they're powerless in, but at least this one, well, no, they're powerless in this one too, but they get some illusion of it. Like, they have some glamour. Like, glamour is used throughout the book, so they go mad and disguise what they're doing, and I guess trick other people. And I think they all fill out roles, because I saw in the same review that talked about the domestic abuse theme, I think they talked about how there was like how people throughout the book had knives, and like all the women had knives, and like it doesn't really say like any of the stonework, like where it comes from. And then by the end of the book, you see Goody's son go into the woods looking for his mom, and he brings a knife, or like, I don't remember if that actually happens, but it probably does. And so he's probably going in to fulfill the role of this knife maker who's been in the story all along, because essentially this story is just happening over and over and over again, and Red Boy and Hope are controlling it, and they get new people, and just the cycle keeps going, and it's all a cycle, and people just keep filling the roles over and over again. So fuck, wow, I think, okay, I talked a lot, but so those are essentially wow, that's probably loud, sorry, I put my cup down. But wow, there's just, even looking at my notes, there's so much I didn't discuss, and so much like I realized as I was reading, but I don't remember that I remembered, although I do now. That didn't make any sense, but there's just a lot going on with this book, and my brain is way too small for it, but I understand the gist of it, and just everything about this book is fucking incredible, but you have to read slowly, you have to take time to read it. So this book is 200 pages, took me 4 days to read, and I was reading quite a bit, and normally, like, if I'm just sitting there and reading, I can read like a couple hundred pages in a day. Not that I do, because I suck at reading now, because I'm going through some crazy fucking depression, but I'm just saying, like, for how long I sat down with this book, I read it so slowly compared to my average reading, and that is because you need to do that to appreciate this book. If you don't, you will be like one of the people that's all over the first most review. If you look up this book, you look up reviews, you'll see people like, what the fuck just happened? I don't understand. I liked it, but it's weird, and don't know if I want to read it again. And so what I'm telling you is, read it slowly, read it in the dark by a fire, get the perfect mood. Don't be ADHD. I'm super ADHD, so don't do that. Try to focus, read this book, and I think you will love it. I think this is one of the best books I have ever read, ever, which isn't that many, because I've only read like a couple hundred books. But even among them, it blew my fucking mind. Some book, like, this only happens every now and then. The last book this happened to me with was a sci-fi book like 10 months ago, or probably about a year ago now. So it's been a long time since I've had a book just leave me absolutely floored, and this is the new one for this year until the next. So highly recommended. Go read it if you like this type of thing. Maybe, I don't know. Goodbye.